I'm actually not even on a side today.
Yeah.
And I'll get to that. Why are you on Texas?
I gave them a challenge. Maybe not me as the overwhelming authority in college football, but entering that game on this set to you guys, I said there was one elite defense entering the matchup in Austin back to end out October. It's not the Bulldogs like it used to be. It is Texas.
College football today, only on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What?
How do you do this once?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
We got the NBA Cup going on. Not that anybody really cares per se about the NBA Cup. Now, I got to be honest with you. I actually did try to look of what does it mean like for the NBA Cup? Like who's playing for what here? And I lost interest and I gave up after about 30 seconds. And I was like, you know what? Whatever, dude. There's NBA games.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
He also said that the Bears head coaching opening would be the most coveted job after the season.
They'll let that guy stay. I heard today that they were very worried about screwing up Caleb Williams, so that he likes this guy Brown so much that they may let him stay as the head coach. What a disaster that'll turn into.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Live right here on the Early Line, we welcome you to a Tuesday all across the SportsGrid network. That includes sportsgrid.com/watch, where you can find your favorite destination to consume everything all across the grid. He is Joe Ranieri. I am Ben Stevens. We are here together for the next 3 hours up until 11 a.m. Eastern Time, bright and early on a Tuesday morning, to recap the conclusion of week number 14 around the National Football League regular season. Monday Night Football at the Star in Dallas. Pretty emblematic of the season for both teams. The Cowboys' disaster at the end, and the Bengals take advantage. We'll recap Monday Night Football, if it means anything for the rest of this season for either Cincinnati or Dallas, and set the stage for a new week. Just 4 weeks now remain in the NFL regular season. We'll go around the association. NBA Cup knockout round on this Tuesday. A lot of college basketball on this Tuesday as well. And Joe, more news in college football as well. The Heisman Trophy finalists who will be here in New York City this weekend named yesterday.
Yeah, I there's a lot going on here, Ben, between the winter meetings in Major League Baseball. It is exam week in college basketball, so a few less games, but the Jimmy V has got everyone all excited here, and I'm excited to see some of these games coming up.
Yeah, absolutely so. Should be a great night of college basketball. Let's look back on a Monday in the National Football League to end out week number 14, the Cowboys and the Bengals. Joe, entering the game, it was difficult perhaps to handicap the motivation between two teams undergoing wildly disappointing seasons, falling well short of that preseason hope and expectation. So what would we see in a football game at the Star to end out week 14? We would see a Dallas disaster on special teams that really sums up how bad this season has been for the Cowboys. Game tied at 20-all. Dallas's defense makes a stand, forcing a punt under 2 minutes remaining in regulation. And then the special teams makes a play. Nick Vigil blowing through the line, blocking the punt of the Bengals, only for his teammate to try to recover said blocked punt, muffing it, Cincy falls on top of the football. They retain possession, and then just a few plays later, the story is old as time for Cincy. Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase. 40-yard touchdown strike to win the game. Cincy prevails in Big D, 27-20. The Bengals, Joe, cover as a 5.5-point road favorite. A total that closed at 50 and a hook does barely stay under.
Hilarious on so many different levels, this game. But this is what happens when you get a couple of 5-8 football teams on a Monday night in week 14. You get a lot of very mediocre football. And boy, oh boy, the Cowboys, if they don't botch that punt, they're already in field goal position for Aubrey, and they win that game. Just a dichotomy of what's going on here with the Cowboys, this organization, and this season.
Yeah, absolutely so, Joe. There will be more implications for us to look back on in just a little bit. But as Ranieri mentioned, both teams, the Bengals and the boys, now 5-8. Neither mathematically eliminated from playoff contention as of this moment, but very long hills to climb if they are even going to sniff or make some noise to even scare a team currently in a wild card position. Plenty more from the end of week 14 around the NFL, setting the stage for the final month of this National Football League regular season in just a little bit. This Saturday night in New York City at the New York Athletic Club, they will hand out a Heisman Trophy, or the Downtown Athletic Club. Regardless, the four guys who will be in the Big Apple this weekend, your Heisman finalists for 2024, were named yesterday. Oregon's Dylan Gabriel, Colorado's two-way star in Travis Hunter, Boise State's record-setting running back in Ashton Jeanty, and Miami's QB Cam Ward. Those are the four Heisman finalists this season.
All of them very worthy of it. Although, I mean, is a running back going to get it? Is a quarterback going to get it? Is a wide receiver slash cornerback going to get it? It's the first time in a while where we're just not dealing with all quarterbacks in the room. It's interesting, Ben. I can't wait to see how they vote and how it turns out.
Joe, this will more than likely, as it seems to be a two-person race between Travis Hunter and Ashton Jeanty, will be only the third time in the last 11 college football seasons we have seen a non-quarterback win this award and a non-Alabama non-quarterback win the Heisman Trophy, because Derrick Henry and Devontae Smith, the last two non-quarterback winners in 2015 and 2020. CU's Travis Hunter remains a hefty odds-on favorite at minus 4,000. To the left of me or the right of me, depending on which stage, right or left, you are looking, you will see our list of topics. And it tells you that Bill Belichick is going to provide an update on the potential of becoming North Carolina's new head football coach. That's pretty much the end of the update. He said on the Pat McAfee show yesterday, we'll see.
Yeah. Well, let me save everyone the expectation and trying to go back. Yeah, he's not taking the job in North Carolina, people. It's not happening at all in any way, shape, or form. Don't waste your time with it. He's already moved on to, I don't know, Cincinnati.
No. You never know what exactly could happen. I would love to hear him say, though, we're already on to Louisville. We're already on to Wake Forest. That would be fantastic to hear in college football. Elsewhere around the NFL, a little bit of controversy and drama for a football team that is going to win their division. Maybe so for the 11-2 Philadelphia Eagles. Brandon Graham, the veteran defensive lineman who is now out for the remainder of this season, during his weekly radio show on WIP in the city of brotherly love, mentioned A.J. Brown, who was not pleased with the passing attack despite a narrow victory over Carolina on Sunday, calling out the offense, if you will. And Brandon Graham pretty much detailed, Ranieri, a relationship between Hurts and Brown that has pretty much devolved over the last little bit of time.
Yeah. Well, I think barely over 220 yards on the last couple of games of passing yardage for Hurts and the Eagle receivers. Listen, just one of many in a long line of disgruntled wide receivers who don't think they get enough passes or don't think they're involved enough, yada, yada. The bottom line is keep winning games, win the NFC East, and all will be well at the end of the day.
Yep, that really is what it comes down to. Brendan Graham saying that A.J. Brown needs to be held accountable if he is going to say things need to be better. Jalen Hurts is trying. A.J. Brown could do more. Really difficult injury news, Joe, for a player that was injured in Philly on Sunday. That's the Panthers rookie running back Jonathan Brooks out of Texas. He was the first running back selected in the second round of the 2024 NFL Draft, recovering from a torn ACL at the end of last year in Austin. He re-injured and re-tore the same ACL in his right knee. Just bummer of some news.
No, that's just, it's awful. And it's unfortunate because the kid, all indication, the kid worked really, really hard to even get back to where he was. For that to happen, Ben, boy, that's going to test his will and his strength. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. No doubt about it. New AP poll in men's college basketball. After a wild week of ranked teams going down, including number one Kansas losing twice in a row, Tennessee, Joe, the new number one team in the country for the first time in 5 years.
Yeah, and well-deserved. And they got the U coming up tonight, so that should be an easy 30-point win. So way to go, Tennessee.
Yeah, we'll talk more college basketball later on in the association. One game last night, the Knicks win in Toronto, but the Raptors keep covering at home. On a Monday night, we go back to Dallas next.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results.
What? How do you do this once? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
He also said that the Bears head coaching opening would be the most coveted job after the season.
They'll let that guy stay. I heard today that they were very worried about screwing up Caleb Williams, so that he likes this guy Brown so much that they may let him stay as the head coach. What a disaster that'll turn into.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
The Monday Night Football finale to week number 14. Last night at the Star between two teams that at the beginning of the year, we probably looked at this Monday marquee matchup and said, oh yeah, baby. Ending out our fifth to final week of the National Football League regular season. Cincy and Dallas, what a showdown it would be between two teams that probably had 8, 9, maybe 10 wins entering that football game. Well, it was the 4-8 Bengals entering and the 5-7 Cowboys, who were riding a 2-game win streak, including their first at home on Turkey Day against the New York Giants. But, Joe, the game last night was pretty representative of where this season has been for both teams. It was a football game that got a little bit wild at the end, all coming down to all three phases and special teams. Game tied at 20. Dallas's defense forces a punt out of Cincinnati under 2 minutes remaining in regulation. Nick Vigil, a special teamer for the Cowboys, gets through the Bengals punt block line, blocks the punt himself. Amani Oruwariye for Dallas tries to pick up said blocked and deflected football and is unable to do so. Oruwariye fumbles it himself, botches and muffs it. Since he recovers, Bengals retain possession thus of the football, and a few plays later, Joe Burrow to Jamar Chase. 40-yard touchdown toss where Jamar Chase in the open field continues to display his brilliance, sprinting about 25 yards after the reception to find Pater for the game-winning score with just over a minute remaining in the fourth quarter. Since he wins 27-20, the Bengals cover as a 5.5-point road favorite at the Star. Total of 50.5. That was the closing over-under. Does stay under.
And again, the sad part of all of this is that had he not tried to get in front of that ball and pick it up, the Cowboys in all likelihood were in Aubrey range right there with a minute left to go. And the Cowboys could have ran a couple of plays and had the shot at actually the walk-off field goal. But just a ridiculous lack of communication as usual. The fact that you even blocked the punt is kind of amazing, only to have somebody not understand the fact of get away with the ball. How many times have we seen it, Ben, in the NFL?
Yeah.
Guys are screaming, get away from it, get away from it. He was legit like the only guy there thinking between Cincinnati Bengals players that somehow he was going to pick it up and do what with it. It's just unfortunate across the board for the Cowboys, but that's kind of what their season has been all about in that play.
It would make more sense if the block punt was blocked backwards and the Cowboys were trying to scoop and score into the end zone. But a block punt really works in essence like a regular punt. If the kicking team, as the ball advances past the line of scrimmage, touches it before the receiving team, that's it. You lose your possession on that play after the punt is blocked, moving past the line of scrimmage. But don't listen to us. Here's the Cowboys head coach, Mike McCarthy, trying to explain the botched block punt that cost his team the chance of a win.
We actually had a return called. The tackle released. The guard went down. The big gap was exposed. Nick took it. And then we were, able to get the block. AO was in a vice situation. And then, he heard the roar of the crowd, and when he turned, he understands the role, of crossing. Once the ball crosses the line, his response was when he turned, when he heard the crowd, the ball was there, and he reacted to it. So, obviously, a big play in the game.
Yeah, I guess that makes some sense in the excitement, in the fervor of the crowd. You see a live and loose football, you try to grab said live and loose football. But if you are truly understanding of the rules and the situation, and hopefully your sideline is yelling, Peter, 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 fire, 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 as in stay the F away from the football, that would win the day. It did not. Amani, again, Oruwariye tried to make a play on it, was unable to control that bouncing pigskin. Since he falls on it, the Bengals retain possession. Cincinnati wins the football game and covers as a 5.5-point road favorite. Joe, it has not been a great year for either of these two teams, both now having a 5-8 record. But where Cincinnati has been so good is where Dallas has been awful. The Cowboys at home last night, now 1-6, both straight up and against the number. 0-5 ATS as a home underdog. Cincy happy to be away from home, where they are now 6-1 against the spread, including a perfect 4-0 ATS as a road favorite. Will it be enough for the Bengals to make a charge to the AFC postseason? No. Was it a win last night? Yes.
Yeah, I mean, congratulations. You're on your way to maybe being a 500 team. I mean, all of this for both these teams. Ben, the NFL and the schedule has thought at week 14, that Monday night game would have been for a lot more than what it was, which is basically two below 500 teams trying to save either a coach's job or just try to get respectability. But Dallas completely blew it. And quite honestly, for everyone who thought that was going to be some sort of 60-point affair, and that was not even remotely close, despite Jamar Chase's best efforts. That neither of those two teams there are going to beat anybody, even if they so happen to back into the playoffs, man. They are bad teams.
And they're not going to back into the playoffs, given where the wild card standings are right now around the National Football League. Maybe more hope for Cincinnati than that of Dallas, but that hope is 0.05% at this moment. Maybe not quite those implied odds. But one of the things that has been great for the Bengals this year, Joe, it is still the Burrow to Chase connection. Joe Burrow leads the NFL in passing yards. We saw that last night, 369 and 3 touchdowns, 14 grabs, 177 yards, and 2 scores for Jamar Chase that probably left the game last night, went to shake his owner Mike Brown's hand and said, I await your $40 million per year paycheck. More on the early line next.
Yep.
Sharpest football contest show in the land. The Las Vegas Football Contest Show focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With 2 former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
He also said that the Bears head coaching opening would be the most coveted job after the season.
They'll let that guy stay. I heard today that they were very worried about screwing up Caleb Williams, so that he likes this guy Brown so much that they may let him stay as the head coach. What a disaster that'll turn into.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
I'm actually not even on a side today.
Yeah.
And I'll get to that. Why are you on Texas?
I gave them a challenge. Maybe not me as the overwhelming authority in college football, but entering that game on this set to you guys, I said there was one elite defense entering the matchup in Austin back to end out October. It's not the Bulldogs like it used to be. It is Texas.
College football today, only on SportsGrid.
We are close right now to round 1 perfection. And the problem I'm going to have is, depending on some of these outcomes on Saturday, it's going to ruin my excitement for round number 1.
I'm not going to yell. I'm not going to scream. Called my doctor after last Monday when we went at it. He said, listen, the blood pressure was off the charts. We can't have you looking like that. I don't want to see neck veins.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Monday Night Football finale to week number 14 last night at the Star in Dallas. That now features 2 teams that hold a 5-8 record individually. Again, Joe, story of this season for the Bengals is a defense that in the most critical moments of their most significant games of the year could not make the necessary stop. The issue for Cincinnati at full health has never, and I mean never, been the offensive output. As we saw last night, 44 attempts for Joe Burrow, 33 completions, 369 yards, and 3 touchdowns. $177 of that 369 in 2 of the 3 passing tuds, that to Jamar Chase. In the story for Cincinnati, Joe, even if they rattle off 4 consecutive victories, with last night make that 5 in a row to end out the regular season, more than likely they are still going to miss out on the postseason. So a quick focus will be on the offseason for the Bengals in paying Jamar Chase whatever he wants. That is one of the main headlines to know for Cincinnati, starting right now and moving the rest of the way.
Yeah, and it's so weird because the conversations, and I believe Burrow was asked again, and Burrow's like, oh, there's a plan. We can sign not just Jamar, but we can get Higgins and keep their big 3 together. I can't wait to see it, but how it's gotten to this point, Ben, is so Cincinnati Bengal ownership, I can't even begin to tell you. So I don't see this. This is going to get screwed up beyond belief. Somebody's not going to be happy. And quite honestly, if I'm Higgins or if I'm Chase, I'm maybe pulling a hamstring very soon and not being available to play any more of these disaster games here. So just saying, don't be shocked if that happens.
And part of the reason that Joe Burrow is getting asked about it, part of the reason we are discussing it here in the immediate aftermath of a Cincinnati road victory and a Bengals road cover as a 5.5-point favorite, is you saw the updated outlook. Cincy is still 5-8. They do not have a playoff price available on the FanDuel Sportsbook right now. The Broncos, who were on the bye this week, would be in that third and final AFC wildcard spot alongside the Chargers. Both teams are 8-5. The Bengals trail by 3 games in the wildcard standings with only 4 remaining. I don't think I need to explain mathematically why climbing that mountain would be incredibly difficult. The Ravens are also 8-5, so all 3 wild card teams right now in the AFC playoff picture have that 3-game advantage. And there's a few teams in front of Cincinnati that are still on the outside of the playoff picture. Joe, for the Dallas Cowboys, a little bit of life, perhaps entering Monday Night Football, 2 consecutive victories. The divisional upset just playing spoiler to the Commanders a couple of weeks ago. And on Thanksgiving, finally, a win at home against the New York Giants. The only win, the only cover for Dallas at home in the Star so far this season. But I think you saw last night the limitations of a Cooper Rush Dallas team, and perhaps it is better for the Cowboys, maybe not Mike McCarthy's future, but better for the Cowboys to lose more games than win them moving forward in the final 4 weeks of this regular season to get a better draft pick, which is basically where Dallas's focus falls.
Yeah, and it's a shame because going into that game last night, quite honestly, Dallas had the best shot of catching Washington, which is the team in front of them. A, Ben, you mentioned it. They had already beat them. And B, they end the season first week in January against Washington. So, maybe if Washington, loses a game or 2, which is very possible, then all of a sudden the Cowboys were very much alive for that final wild card spot. But unfortunately, that loss last night makes it virtually impossible at this point.
Yeah, and that really is where it is, Joe. I was kind of hoping the Cowboys would pull off the outright upset. Nothing against Cincinnati. I just don't think the Bengals are going to be able to catch anybody in the AFC to earn a wild card spot. I would have loved the conversation, kind of the confounding nature of it for Dallas. Well, Mike McCarthy, it has Cooper Rush winning 3 straight games. The Cowboys aren't really out of the playoff picture, making what would be a very exciting and intriguing home stretch for Dallas when basically since the season started way back in the offseason, we've been saying the same thing. Jerry Jones did not pay the guys that he needed to in an orderly fashion, namely a running back, despite Rico Dowdle performing as of late, and a lame duck head coach in Mike McCarthy. Now the Cowboys are just 5-8. More around the NFL next.
I'm actually not even on a side today.
Yeah.
And I'll get to that. Why are you on Texas?
I gave them a shout. Maybe not me as the overwhelming authority in college football, but entering that game on this set to you guys, I said there was one elite defense entering the matchup in Austin back to end out October. It's not the Bulldogs like it used to be. It is Texas.
College football today, only on SportsGrid.
She was recruited to Oregon partially by, guess who? Mark Campbell and Xavi Lopez. They know what they're doing. And I'm going to say this right now, folks. I'm going to say this right now. Mark Campbell is one of the 5 to 10 best coaches in women's college basketball right now.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
We got the NBA Cup going on. Not that anybody really cares per se about the NBA Cup. Now, I got to be honest with you. I actually did try to look of like, okay, like what does it mean like for the NBA Cup? Like who's playing for what here? And I lost interest and I gave up after about 30 seconds. And I was like, you know what? Whatever, dude. There's NBA games.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
He also said that the Bears head coaching opening would be the most coveted job after the season.
They'll let that guy stay. I heard today that they were very worried about screwing up Caleb Williams, so that he likes this guy Brown so much that they may let him stay as the head coach. What a disaster that'll turn into.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
At the end of 14 weeks around the National Football League regular season, we always like to set the stage for the week that is upcoming. That's week 15. All right, week 15, Ben. Of course, 14 goes into 15. What's the big deal here? 4 more weeks. You can literally call it the final month of the National Football League regular season to dictate everything, the playoff picture, the teams that will earn spots in the postseason in their respective conferences, who is going to claim a divisional crown and host a playoff game. What will the seed lines look like in both the AFC and the NFC? Will the Chiefs hold on to that number 1 spot as they have held on to so many victories at the end of games this year? My Eagles test the Lions for that top spot in the NFC. So much to detail here on the early line. But even outside of that, Joe, it's also a time in college football to set the stage for the college football playoff. And for most, not the 12 teams in the CFP, not even the 82 total teams that will play in bowl season, that includes the college football playoff, those teams already have an eye on the offseason. The transfer portal officially opening yesterday, and a guy that kind of blends the NFL and right now the college ranks is a guy you might not expect to be interviewing for head coaching vacancies in the ACC. That is Bill Belichick. And I don't know why anybody believed that Bill Belichick was about to hop on national television on the Pat McAfee show yesterday, formerly of the Spiz Grizz Network, and tell how he actually felt about the North Carolina job opening. But this is what he said. Quote, he's had a couple of good conversations and we'll see how it goes. This could be an interesting part, though. Belichick says, quote, it seems like college football is more like pro football, end quote. And, Joe, if there is any realistic possibility of Belichick taking the college job at North Carolina, some people have said, why would he ever want to do that? This guy is going to recruit. This guy is going to be on the grind like we see in the sport. The college football of the present is not like the college football of the past, even within the last 5 years. And Belichick was basically the GM and front office exec who was ruthless in New England and oftentimes not all that great in managing free agent acquisitions.
Yeah, I listen, North Carolina. You better have a lot of safe spaces there, Ben, because Belichick coming on campus and dealing with kids and NIL money and everything else along those lines. Yeah, that feels like a lawsuit waiting to happen here. But he also said, Ben, that no NFL teams have reached out. There has not been any sort of communication. I mean, we know he was supposed to be the head coach of Atlanta, wasn't he? Then Atlanta was like, yeah no, we're going with Raheem Morris. So if Belichick really wants to coach and really wants to be in football and no NFL team, nothing comes to fruition there, I guess it makes sense to have something like North Carolina in your back pocket if coaching is really what it's all about for him. And maybe it is. Maybe he's turned a page and said, you know what, maybe go back to the roots, go back to the kids and see how it goes.
So here's a couple of things, Joe, that I think give credence to this report. I still would put it at 97% to the no, that Bill Belichick is not the Tar Heels' new football coach when 2025 begins. But the report that came out on Friday afternoon, that Bill Belichick, in essence, is trying to do this so that he can set the stage for a succession plan for his son, Steve Belichick, the current defensive coordinator at the University of Washington, to become a head coach in college football, is the most realistic thing that I buy into this reporting and the speculation that Belichick could actually become UNC's head coach. I would just push back slightly. Steve Belichick is a promising young defensive coordinator who has had good success with the Huskies this season, improving a defense that was the low point of a team that reached the national championship game a season ago. So all to say, Steve Belichick, on his own accord, not even his own last name, might get some looks for some college jobs coming up here soon. Would it be at the power level right away? That remains to be seen. Number two, if we can go back to the clip reel of Bill Belichick in his post-Patriots life as the head coach, the idea of control is interesting. I think he wants that in college. And then look who he's with right there. His girlfriend, who is younger. Maybe he can relate, Joe, to this younger generation as he has done here in his post-coaching life in Foxborough.
Well, listen, I mean, I don't see it. I mean, I think it's nice, but Saban left for a reason, and nobody had more control than Saban. And Saban is in many aspects a Belichick disciple. So if Saban wanted to give up control, was like, I'm done with this college game, I don't know how this fascinates Belichick in any way, shape, or form, unless he's also going to be the athletic director at some point and maybe hires his kid. I don't know, but it just seems like North Carolina, having total control at North Carolina, still doesn't feel like that is going to be a destination like what Alabama was for Saban.
So a couple of things, right? Nick Saban was a part of the old guard in college football for a very long time that had seen the sport change. We have seen it in college basketball. Even the older guard, but not really elderly guys, Jay Wright, Tony Bennett, walking away from the sport because of how the landscape had changed with the transfer portal and NIL. Bill Belichick knows the semi-professional or professional liking of the National Football League, which is basically the NIL era and the transfer portal era in college football. And still in college, you could have more control over your teams and players' lives than you can in the NFL. They're professionals. They have families. They do their own thing. They show up when they have to. They leave the facility when they're done. When they're on a college campus, they go to class, they go to practice, they go to meetings. You dictate what they do basically each and every day. Could that be appealing for Belichick? Maybe so. And, Joe, one of the reasons I don't think Bill Belichick is an NFL head coach this season is because he only knew control for about a decade and a half in New England, being the last and final say to everything. Coaching decisions, roster decisions, all of that. We'll see if that changes, if, in fact, he does become a viable coaching candidate for an NFL opening at some point this offseason. Our vacant jobs right here, right now, the Bears, Saints, and Jets. We expect a few more in just a few weeks. Today, yesterday, I should say, and this weekend in New York City, it will be the Heisman Trophy ceremony to present the winner the Heisman Trophy in 2024. Finalists yesterday were named for their trip to the Big Apple. Colorado's Travis Hunter, Boise's Ashton Genty, Oregon's quarterback Dylan Gabriel, and Miami's QB as well, Cam Ward. Travis Hunter, Joe, basically for the last month plus, has been the hefty favorite to strike the pose and win the Heisman Trophy as a two-way superstar. That's where he remains at minus 4,000.
Oh, seems like a lot of value there. I mean, listen, I'm still not convinced it won't go to a quarterback. But, hey, every one of those guys on there, absolutely worthy of being there, Ben, because every one of them, I don't think we'd have a problem with any of them getting the award. They all of them earned it. But if you're Dylan Gabriel and you're the only undefeated team in the country and you're going to be playing for a national championship, interesting that he's at that price.
And normally that would bolster a resume for a quarterback. But this year we are seeing two generationally historic non-quarterbacks in the sport. Travis Hunter, not just a snap count merchant, and of course the record-setting running back in Ashton Genty. More NFL news next.
I'm actually not even on a side today.
Yeah.
And I'll get to that. Why are you on Texas?
I gave them a chance. Maybe not me as the overwhelming authority in college football, but entering that game on this set to you guys, I said there was one elite defense entering the matchup in Austin back to end out October. It's not the Bulldogs like it used to be. It is Texas.
College football today, only on SportsGrid.
She was recruited to Oregon partially by, guess who? Mark Campbell and Xavi Lopez. They know what they're doing. And I'm going to say this right now, folks. I'm going to say this right now. Mark Campbell is one of the 5 to 10 best coaches in women's college basketball right now.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
We got the NBA Cup going on. Not that anybody really cares per se about the NBA Cup. Now, I got to be honest with you. I actually did try to look of what does it mean like for the NBA Cup? Like who's playing for what here? And I lost interest and I gave up after about 30 seconds. And I was like, you know what? Whatever, dude. There's NBA games.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
He also said that the Bears head coaching opening would be the most coveted job after the season.
They'll let that guy stay. I heard today that they were very worried about screwing up Caleb Williams, so that he likes this guy Brown so much that they may let him stay as the head coach. What a disaster that'll turn into.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
One week comes to a close around the National Football League. A new one is on the horizon and not all that far away. And despite, Joe, being winners of 9 straight games, an 11-2 record atop the NFC East, in a short favorite or one of the two favorites and frontrunners to win a conference championship and maybe appear in a Super Bowl for the second time in the last 3 seasons. There always seems to be a little bit of drama in Philadelphia. Brandon Graham, veteran pass rusher who has been with the Eagles for more than a decade, out for the remainder of this year with a torn triceps muscle, was making his weekly radio show yesterday in Philly and was talking about some of the post-game comments after a narrow victory against the Panthers, in which Jalen Hurts threw for just 108 yards on Sunday against Carolina. A.J. Brown was, maybe let's call it, displeased with the passing attack and how things have been going through the air for this Philly offense as of late. He is a wide receiver to a T. Brandon Graham basically said, if you are going to call out a winning formula, then you must also be held accountable, and basically referenced 11, that being A.J. Brown's number, and 1, that being the number of Jalen Hurts, and how their relationship has played out, where Brown is a little bit temperamental and Hurts is trying the best he can, but that the relationship has changed. Like, what are you saying? Do these guys hate each other? Do they not talk, despite it being quarterback and number 1 option? Brandon Graham quickly did some damage control and said, I said too much. It's not exactly what I meant. I kind of got a little bit gossipy in that radio appearance. Joe, what do you make of it? If there's smoke, is there fire? Is there anything to actually be concerned about for the Eagles?
As long as they're winning, Ben, none of this matters. But, while the numbers don't appear to be great for Jalen Hurts, I think you also have to look at 9 games, I believe, right? In the fourth quarter of the 9-game winning streak they're in right now, Ben. He leads the NFL with 152.5 passer rating and has more touchdowns than incompletions. He's got 6 touchdowns and only 5 incompletions when the game is on the line and matters the most. 9-game winning streak, not because of Brown, who's been hurt most of the time, but because Jalen Hurts doesn't turn the ball over and because he doesn't do things that hurts his team. So as long as that continues, then Brown can be upset all he wants. It's not going to make a difference in that locker room as long as they're winning.
Yep, and that's really the case of it, Joe. You also have a historic and record-setting running back in Saquon Barkley that is picking up the lion's share of the production, and rightfully so. The Panthers were the worst rushing defense in the NFL entering Sunday, and Saquon Barkley took advantage of it. The Eagles still won the game. They came nowhere close to covering as a 13.5-point home favorite, and the Panthers probably should have won the game on a Bryce Young-led game-winning drive and a pass that should have been caught by Xavier Legette, but it was not. Also to say, Joe, Jalen Hurts has had 180 passing yards or less, or maybe I should say fewer than 180 passing yards in 3 consecutive games. So they haven't been overly prolific through the air. But even just 3 weeks ago, in that Sunday night game in L.A., Jalen Hurts only threw the ball 22 times for 179 yards. 109 of those 179 to A.J. Brown. He only threw for 1 touchdown, did Hurts, in that game. Who caught it? A.J. Brown. I love the guy. And here's why I love the guy. Because when you live your life by a certain credo, you stay consistent to the bit. And when you are a diva number 1 wide receiver that complains when things are going good just because you have not touched the football enough, keep it going, AJ. And that is what he is doing. The Eagles, by the way, a minus 7,000 favorite to win the NFC East, which they should comfortably do. Tough news, though, Joe, elsewhere in Philadelphia on Sunday. Panthers rookie running back Jonathan Brooks, who had been back for 3 games, including Sunday in Philly, returning from a torn ACL that he suffered at the end of his college football season last year in Austin with Texas, was rehabbing the entirety of the offseason throughout the NFL draft process, still was the highest selected running back, 46th overall in the second round by Carolina, retore the same ACL in the same right knee against the Eagles on Sunday. There is no other way to describe it except for a monumental bummer.
Yeah, just terrible. It really is. I mean, to make that comeback and now have to deal with the same injury there. The rehab with something like this, Ben, is just over the top. The fact that he even got drafted where he did was interesting, coming out of Texas. But now he's got to do it all over again, and with the same knee. It's just not great. But he also wouldn't be the first guy to come back and bounce back from this either.
More injury news for the Bucs. Their season defined by injuries despite being in the top spot in the NFC South. Antoine Winfield Jr. set to miss several games for Tampa. Aiden O'Connell, who left the Raiders game against the Bucs on Sunday on a cart. Good news is they don't expect to place him on IR or miss a ton of time. Former Raiders quarterback Derek Carr injured late on Sunday against the Giants. Do we want to go with it here? Here's interim head coach Darren Rizzi detailing the injury for Derek Carr.
Like I said yesterday, Derek's dealing with a non-throwing hand injury. As it stands at this moment, I don't believe it's going to be an IR situation. I think it's going to be a week-to-week situation. So we're going to kind of take this day by day this week. We'll see how this week plays out. But that's really where we are right now. So it's a non-throwing hand. He is in the concussion protocol also, so he's got to complete the first step of that tomorrow. So it is a double aspect in terms of the injury. You're dealing with both. So we've got to obviously, see what happens there. But this will be a day-to-day right now this week. And really, I think it's going to end up being the way it looks, it'll end up being a week-to-week situation with him.
Saints a 7.5-point dog hosting the Commanders fresh out of a bye for Washington on Sunday. New AP poll in college hoops and a lot of changes next.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this once? Oh, Donnie, you've got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
He also said that the Bears head coaching opening would be the most coveted job after the season.
They'll let that guy stay. I heard today that they were very worried about screwing up Caleb Williams, so that he likes this guy Brown so much that they may let him stay as the head coach. What a disaster that'll turn into.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
We welcome you back to this Tuesday, live right here on the Early Line on SportsGrid. Listen, we still got a lot of football season, despite the fact that some folks might tell you it's not a big deal. There's only a month left. But, Joe, as college football starts to dwindle down, right? We've got the Army-Navy game on Saturday. We've got a week until we get to the college football playoff. Some bowl games starting to sprinkle through as well. We'll turn a little bit more of our attention to college basketball. After the opening month of this season, we have reached week 6 of the college basketball campaign, which is a very, and I mean very, important AP poll each and every year. Because, Joe, for the last 20 seasons of men's college basketball, the winner of the eventual national championship in April has been ranked inside the top 12 of the AP poll in week number 6. Every single season since 2004 in college hoops, and there's a new number 1 atop the AP top 25. That Rick Barnes' Tennessee Volunteers, ranked number 1 for the first time since the 2018-19 campaign. Joe, a lot of turnover and change in the AP poll this week because last week, as we continue to see some non-conference matchups, conference versus conference, power conference teams facing off against one another, even some conference games like in the Big Ten and ACC already getting started. We saw 14 ranked teams lose at least one game last week, including 6 teams in the top 10, including the most recent number 1 that had been atop the poll all year long, that being Kansas, that dropped 2 straight games in Omaha last week against Creighton, on Sunday afternoon in Columbia against Missouri. KU falls by 9 spots to number 10, which leads the way to Tennessee, still perfect and undefeated to be the number 1 team in the nation. I believe we have an issue there with Joe Renier. I'm sorry. It's not funny that we have a technological issue, but just the still frozen face of Joe Renier.
I'm still good.
Looking very concerned that Tennessee was ranked number 1 was very good.
I'm concerned for
what
Kansas.
What is your concern around the Volunteers, please?
Kansas concerns me because Kansas starts the season 7-0. You beat Duke ranked, you beat Michigan State ranked, and at the time you beat North Carolina ranked. And now you go in a 5-day span, unranked Creighton, unranked Missouri. It is only the first time in more than 20 years, Ben, in which we've had a team at AP1 lose twice to unranked opponents in the same week. It just doesn't happen, and it certainly doesn't happen to Kansas. So they got some things, Bill Self and company, to figure out there. But in the meantime, Auburn, Tennessee, guys handling their business, Iowa State. This is the names on that list, Ben. I don't see that changing a whole lot over time. I think they'll just be jockeying for position here over the next month and a half.
Duke, a big week as well. They knocked off number 2 Auburn in Durham. Auburn stays at number 2, though, just because they have that lone road loss to the Blue Devils in a great resume outside of that. The Blue Devils, a big week. They beat Louisville in its ACC opener as well. Iowa State moves up to number 3, the highest ranking for the Cyclones since 1956-57. And look at Kentucky. They rallied to beat Gonzaga. They actually fell down a spot, but they remain in the top 5 as well. So again, Joe, in the AP poll, week number 6, every national champion that has been crowned since 2004 has been ranked within the top 12 of the week 6 AP top 25. So look at those top 12 teams that you see right there, and then move it over to the national championship odds. Auburn remains the favorite, plus 750. $1.50 in front of Duke, 9-1. Houston, 12-1 price. Gonzaga, 12-1 price. Both of those teams still comfortably within the top 10 or 12 as well. Is Houston? Am I missing Houston? Why do I not see Houston? Where is Houston?
Not top.
Houston's 15.
I don't think.
15. All right.
Yep.
Something to pay attention to. Couldn't find him for a second.
No. Well, and there's a few teams in that 12, 13, 14. I think Oregon as well is a team that, coming off that 2-point loss on a banked 3 against UCLA might be worth a look.
Keep an eye on the Ducks, one of the best guards in the country in Jackson Shellstack. Hour 2.
Yes.